Muchas gracias a todos por venir. Una suerte y un tremebundo que nadie se haya podido parar por aquí en esta visita, que tenía una exposición en Milán que inauguraba esta semana. Y bueno, aprovechando tal acontecimiento en que Europa se hace muy pequeño, pues nos dejo para venir a hacer unas presentacioncitas y unas firmas y tal. Gracias a Elisa por prestarse a presentar a Ryan, por supuesto a Ryan por venir. Y nada, en principio la charla va a ser en inglés, así que bueno, estar atentos. Tengo un acento pulido y noble y que se entiende perfectamente, así que nada, si hay cualquier emergencia que no se entienda algo, pues ya haremos así como una traducción, pero en principio la cosa va a ir así.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Adrián, y thank you very much, Ryan, for being here. Lo hemos comentado, si queréis también hacer cualquier tipo de pregunta, que está muy agradecido y gratamente sorprendido de que haya tanta gente que haya venido. Y si queréis preguntar cualquier cuestión, yo voy a ir haciendo pues, algunas preguntas y demás. Tampoco vamos a estar mucho tiempo porque entendemos que lo que queréis es también hablar vosotros y que os firme y demás. Pero si queréis ir preguntar cualquier cosa y demás, está abierto el canal, ¿vale? So, thank you very much for being here. Ryan, you came from Milan, and the expo in Milan is titled Springs to Come. So, tell us about the spring in Vancouver.
Okay.
The city that you did.
Okay, like about where I come from, or
yes, where you come from, and you know, estábamos hablando antes. We was talking about how the weather is related, or the bad weather is related with the Canadian comic scene, and for all these great bands of comic artists in Canada.
Okay. First of all, thank you, everyone. This is much more. I expected maybe 5 or something. This is many more. So thank you very much for the warm reception. Yes. So just start talking about the exhibition. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and I'm from Winnipeg, Canada, which is the middle of the country. They call it the armpit of Canada. In many ways it lives up to its name. Most people want to leave when they get old enough and go elsewhere and study and work. For me, it was a good childhood because the extremes in weather, the hot summers and the cold winters, I did a lot of exploration outside, but also in the winters would go into the shell and draw and escape into comics and cinema and that sort of thing. In Vancouver, it's a milder climate, but still very gray and wet for many months of the year. So when I painted the show in Milan, Springs to Come, I think I needed to sort of get out of the grayness of winter when I started last year, and really started painting with bright colors and sort of expressive plants, creatures, hybrids, and that sort of thing. My last show in Milan was actually quite dark, and it was called Midnight Movie, and it was a bit more grim. I was going through sort of a period of anxiety and depression and exhaustion and burnout. So COVID, coronavirus period really slowed things down for me in terms of showing at galleries, and also sort of made me introspective and sort of looking at my own perception of things. Why I had this anxiety, why I had this depression, and sort of learning to let go of things that I couldn't control that were happening both in the world and also just in my own life. So Springs to Come for me was a therapeutic expression of kind of rebirth, of growth, of optimism, and hope, and also sort of maybe looking at the other side of where we are and what that might feel like, at least for me, what I would like to see, the sort of both the sort of the good, the brightness, but also the darkness as well. So both sides of that coin.
So I want to ask you about the beginning of the relationship with outsider comics, and well, we have this editor here, and thank you very much, because thank them we have Mean Girls, here is translated as Chicas Malas, and the Club de las Chicas Malas, and Frogwife, that it's the most creative translation here, that Señora Batracio. I want to ask both how this theme became reality.
Bueno, yo soy fan del trabajo de Ryan, I'm a true fan of your artwork. So, así que cuando vi lo que publicó No Bro del Club de las Chicas Malas, tuve una urgencia. When I saw your Mean Girls Club, I felt really como mucha prisa, ¿no? Para intentar conseguir esos derechos, porque pensaba que todo el mundo los iba a querer. I was so fan that I thought everybody will pitch for those rights, so I have to be the first. And I don't know if everybody was, but I feel your art is so amazing that I think it was, in the same moment it went out published, is when we talked with No Bro, and then via No Bro we began to work in these several books.
Yeah, the first foreign translation of my comics was through you. So thank you for sending it out. Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if I have too much to add, but I don't know what Ada said exactly either. But yeah.
No, because the translation of Frogwife, you know, I think is very creative. No? Señora Batracio, it's the spirit of outsider comics, you know. They are very the bad guys of the comic industry in Spain. So I don't know. I have this curious about how do we.
La traducción, el por qué hacerlo
No,
así.
no, the translation. ¿Cómo sabéis relacionarlo también en?
Well, yeah, email,
Yeah,
well, it's the first time we meet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Love
not
has
Zooms.
come suddenly.
Not Zooms, only
emails,
in
yeah.
the old way.
Yeah.
In the old way, okay.
Digital dating, yeah.
Okay.
Without photos, without pictures.
Yeah, blind digital dating.
And I know you are very fond of vintage comics and all this kind of pop culture, and I'm curious of how do you find these magazines and this universe that is very yours, but with your personality and with your vision. But all of this universe is very old for new generations. So how do you relate with this kind of new generations in, I don't know how to say it, but what how Margaret Brundage and all these pulp magazines impact in yourself and in your art.
Okay. Well, I discovered old comics and pulp magazines and old movies as well. Pretty early on as a child, I don't remember when, but it was very early, and it really it resonated with me instantly. I don't know why, because it was not of my generation. This was maybe about 1978, you know, around Star Wars, first Star Wars. So actually seeing Star Wars sort of opened up the doors for pulp, because I got a book for Christmas. It was the Art of Star Wars from 1977, and in it had a lot of George Lucas's inspiration. Metropolis by Fritz Lang, Flash Gordon, Freaks. There was also a magazine cover of Amazing Stories, which really, to me, was this magical, strange, I didn't know where or when it was from, but the image was instantly burned into my brain. And from there, I just went to the library and started digging through old books on comics. There was a Jules Feiffer book. I think it was the History of Comics or something. But just as much as I could, which wasn't very much. The comic section of the library was maybe this big, and no internet. There was shortly after that, I discovered there was comic book stores, which exploded my brain. It was like there's an entire store. So I went, and it smelled of cigarettes and dirt, and my mom took me, and she was just like, and I was like, oh, this has happened. So I really sort of went down the rabbit hole into comics from there. It's never really left. If anything, I'm just more excited about comics and movies and things, and I continue to search and discover new things. Lately, I've sort of started collecting a lot of foreign material. Argentinian editions, Belgian posters, comics from Italy, from I don't think I have anything Spanish, but sort of all over the world, these old comics. Number one, because I can't afford American collectible comics anymore; they're just too expensive. So I started to look sort of in the underneath and pull out things that were almost more interesting to me too. Not only more affordable, but more interesting. I guess in terms of how I used that inspiration in my own work, when I started painting about 20 years ago, maybe a little more, I really leaned very heavily on the classic tropes of the sort of the women carried off by aliens. The ray guns, the bubble helmets, like very 50s, yeah. Very 50s, very literal.
Betty Page meets more.
Exactly, yeah. My first art show was, I think, we called it Miss Universe, and it was a pinup for each planet. So there was, sort of themed, Saturna had rings, and Jupiter was very big and had one eye, and that sort of thing. So it was very literal and sort of a love letter to that sort of pulp comic genre. But as I moved forward, it became less interesting to do sort of recreations of that material. I wanted to sort of push it into the weird, also sort of cross-pollinating it with other interests that I developed. David Lynch, sort of lowbrow art, fine art, architecture, fashion. So it started to sort of become less about pulps and comics and more of a hybrid of all these different areas of interest, as well as nature, and insects, underwater sea life, and that sort of thing. And then also just moving things into sort of less humanistic and more hybrid, more animal or more twisted or textured, starting to give beautiful women the skin of like a prune or a raisin, to kind of like this very strange at a first glance, maybe being very classically beautiful, but then having this sort of like skin of an alien or something like that. So.
And do you think in weirdness we could find, a feminist discourse?
Sorry, can you elaborate a little bit?
Yes, because you are now saying this mix, this hybrid every view of woman body, and you know, and I think in weirdness, you know, in this way of weird way of seeing things and represent things, I think they could find you know, a feminist way of seeing all these you know, vintage representation.
Yeah,
You know,
I think so. I mean, it was never my intention, but as I sort of moved away from the sort of the very classic pin-up, you know, curvy, large breasts, you know, the sort of the hair and that. I think I moved away from that sort of around the same time as things began to get very political correctness, and it wasn't my intention to be like, oh, I can't paint these anymore, this is not going to be very popular right now.
Yeah.
But it was just more of the, I think the time was just, it was just right for me to move in that direction. Yeah, I am. It was never very intentional, and along with the sort of the comics that I started doing, the Mean Girls and Frog Wife, and then Pleasure Planet more recently, all have a very strong anti-patriarchal theme to them. Again, not really my intention, but I think that sort of in the back of my mind, it's sort of the time was right for me to grow up, to grow out of my adolescent, you know, view of these sort of women's stereotypes that I loved from the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, this sort of Hollywood glamour, which I still really love. But for me, it was my time to move past that.
mm-hmm. That's why before I ask you about Margaret Brundage, you know, this fantastic illustrator of weird tales. I saw in your Instagram that you have a fantastic cover of her work, because she was very avant-garde in her moment, and I think your work is you know, in this kind of weird feminist way is telling very concrete things about our present. You speak about COVID and all this tension, all this anxiety, and I think the 50s. Well, this time, this person is it's related. It's related with all these 50s taste and anxiety too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you...
Yeah, no, I agree. I was talking when I was in Spain a couple months ago at an event. I had a great conversation with a woman about that, who also sort of paints in this sort of 50s language, visual language. And we talked about how there's a lot of similarities with that time and with this time in terms of the sort of the political, the fears we have of the other. You know, in the 50s case it was communism. I think in North America the sort of the relationship with Russia is still, now it's back to the 50s again. You know, it's we've gone fully back. What was my other point? Oh, I mean with the sort of especially I think with the atomic anxiety of the 50s, I think we all sort of feel that now in our generation as well. I thought that was done, but now there's this sort of like tension and fear of like, oh, it's you know, if Trump gets elected, the first thing he's going to do is like look up the codes and like push the button. I don't know. I have this, you know, this is, but it's these sort of fears have all resurged, and there's, you know, the racial tension and all this stuff. So it does feel like the language that I use is now somehow validated by the crazy times that we live in. So it's sort of now revisiting that sort of visual language feels appropriate in many ways. Does that sort of relate to what you were talking about? And with Margaret Brundage, I I gravitate towards the very few women creators of that 1930s to 50s period. I think there's the work that they did, and there's just a small little handful of them. Margaret Brundage is one of them. Tarp Mills, I don't know if you know her work. She was a comic artist and did Miss Fury, who was, she changed her name, it was June, but she changed her name to Tarp, so it was more sort of like, we don't know if it's a woman or not, because she thought that it would be a disadvantage to be a woman cartoonist in a man's game. So when I look at their work, there's just there's a real strength and a beauty and a different sort of energy, I think, than the male creators in many ways, and it really, I don't know, it really resonates with me.
You are very fond of superheroes too. I don't know if a freak way or in a twisted way. Who is your favorite?
My favorite superhero?
I think it's Batman.
Batman! Yeah.
Batman?
It's, yes, no question, it's Batman, ever since I was a child. And I have many dreams where I walk into an old store and there's old Batman comics that I've never seen before, and I quickly, when I wake up, the first thing I do is I open up my sketchbook and I quickly draw the covers. I dream a lot of other like pulp magazines and old strange Mexican magazines with squids on the covers and things. So I have this recurring dream of searching for this material, and
I recommend you the Brazilian pulp. It's kind of weird. Yes.
I've tried to buy some, and they're very hard to, you know, purchase.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Yes. Like
I've got some really good covers in my phone that I found online, and they're just fantastic. Skeletons riding dragons and things like that. It's really strange stuff.
Very strange. Yes. Very swampy.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask you about Blab. I have this last issue, Comics and Stories That Will Make You Blab, because it's quite important in your career, this magazine. So
yeah.
tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, I discovered Blab. Blab has been around since maybe I think 1986 or 88. I'm not too sure. It was the brainchild of Monty Beauchamp, who comes from an advertising background, but got very tired of advertising, so he switched over to comics and decided, you know, I'm not going to make as much money as advertising, obviously, but this is my love and my passion. And he started to publish people, Dan Close, Charles Burns, Robert Crumb, Richard Sala, Sue Coe, just a whole many sort of underground talents that were that he found sort of, I think, all sort of worked together in a very strange way. So I discovered Blab maybe in 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there, and it really sort of changed my whole perception of what I wanted to do. I had sort of just broken into illustration, working for magazines and newspapers. But when I saw Blab, it's like, this is really what I need to be doing, not drawing pictures of people on like treadmills and exercising and on their computers and that. I need to be, you know, drawing swamp monsters and doing that for a living. So I reached out to Monty in about 2005, and by 2007 I'd done my first 2-page spread for Blab, and that to me I think remains one of the highlights of my career was being able to work with Monty. And since that time we've worked together on other Blab issues. Blab has sort of changed format from square to hardcover to this format, and it keeps sort of changing publishers and formats, but there's always that sort of core voice that Monty maintains with Blab. So it just continues to be a very important outlet for me, an important relationship, and a great tool to get work seen by a different audience.
How do you see yourself as a painter, as comics author, as an illustrator?
I guess just an artist. I don't really separate those areas in my practice.
Artist as a whole?
Yes, and a lot of times those things just happen simultaneously, where I'll be painting, but a comic idea will come to mind. Or in the cases of the comics, those all started off as individual paintings, some of them quite small, but just an idea and a small, quick painting that I thought later on, this could have potential for a good narrative, and I think the narrative starts to sort of cook in my brain in the back there, and eventually it kind of comes out, you know, ding, and it's ready, and it comes out when it wants to. So yeah, a lot of times I think painting really informs my comics more than the other way around.
Okay. ¿Tenéis alguna pregunta? Do you want to add something to Ryan?
Sí, es el cine de Russ Meyer, ha podido ser una influencia, o hay alguna conexión.
Russ Meyer? Yes, not too much, but I've definitely watched a few Russ. I've enjoyed a few Russ Meyer movies, Faster Pussycat and that sort of thing. And yeah, I think that had to have had an influence on Mean Girls, because it's the similarities between Faster Pussycat and Mean Girls. There's an undeniable, not a direct, like, I want to do my own Faster Pussycat, but I think it was one of the ingredients that found itself in the comic now. Has Russ Meyer been cancelled yet, or not here? But I mean, I don't know. I just remember in his movies, there's always multiple shots looking up of like the sort of. It's like a trademark.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question about your technique and your decision specifically in Frog Wife about the use of the color. Why did you decide to use this flashy color? So I don't know, because it's a kind of I expected more dark colors because it's kind of a post-apocalyptic place. But why the decision?
Yeah, well, I think too the original was quite bright, but then Outsider took it a step further with this very fluorescent explosive. So it's it almost feels radioactive, which is appropriate, I think, for, you know, an atomic explosion type of mutation comic. But I chose the colors in Frog Wife. There's three colors. There's yellow, this cyan, and then the bright red. And I sort of wanted to just capture the original printing process of comics, which were basically cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And I left out black just to kind of keep it very, very light. If I wanted black, I just basically printed all three colors over top. So the main motivation was really to get as close as I could to the sort of the comics of the past that I like, the sort of the very gaudy colors that were used. And again, the sort of the post-apocalyptic thing, I didn't want it to be sort of a grim, you know, black, gray, you know, I still wanted it to be this sort of radioactive, sort of hell, I guess, that, you know, this sort of strange juxtaposition of this hellish after post-civilization world, but in these very strange, glowing, vibrant, radioactive colors. I'm a color addict, so I tend not to shy away from colors. I jump in and I sort of push them as far as I can.
Yeah, I have to admit that I didn't know your work, and when I saw Frog Wife, I bought it because of the colors. This is impressive. So.
I think that's what always attracts me to art and comics. Is just it's like color is my entry point, and then I go further and dive into the content, the technique, and that. But I think for me, if there's it's the color that really grabs me. And by the way, I'm partially colorblind, so I'm not sure how it works with painting and that, but not very colorblind, but a little bit. And I found that out much later in life. So.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you ever thought about doing something for kids, or you have something in mind. I know you have the Monster Town book, but I haven't read it. I couldn't find it, so I don't know if it's for kids or not. But
yes,
the cover looks for
it is. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Okay. Yeah, I did Robot Town and Monster Town, and then a follow-up Robot Town, which were both published through Henry Holt in New York. I loved Dr. Seuss as a child, and I still do, even though part of his work has been canceled as well. I don't care. But it was sort of when I got into illustration, it was a goal of mine to publish children's books, and I thought this would be a really great outlet. I really wanted to do it. I published a small ABC book, self-published, well before I did anything with Henry Holt. Just because I thought it'd be fun to do an ABC. It was a Halloween book, so there was a lot of skeletons and devils and things like that. And when Henry Holt, actually the publisher, Christie, she saw that book first and then wanted to sort of either republish it or create something new sort of based on that idea. But after 2 children's books, you know, sort of like, oh, okay, tick, you know, onto the next, onto something else. And I think when I started doing comics after the children's books, it's like, well, this is what I need to spend my time doing. I can't, there's no going back. And also just, you know, with the children's audience, I don't know, it's quite quite limited. You know, you can't bring Russ Meyer into the equation. So,
Why not?
Well. Some parents are okay with that, but most not so much. Maybe it could be a book on, you know, our bodies or something, and it's like a Russ Meyer, you know, centerfold or something. But yeah, so it's something that I still love. I love children's books. I love children's book illustration, but I think for me, it's maybe again I'll come back to it, but yeah.
You are now working on a comic book?
I have several plans, but nothing started. But I do have a show in Los Angeles, solo show in 2025, and I'm hoping that I can, the theme I have, I won't get into it, but I'm hoping that I can tie that theme into a comic book idea that I have and sort of do the two simultaneously to release the comic book at the art show with the same title as the show. So yeah.
And self-published.
Self-published. Yeah.
So.
We'll talk. I'll pitch later. Yeah, but I do have several others planned, but the timing, the time it takes to do them is the challenging part. So, yeah. But watch, something will be coming out.
May I ask? So, do you have to face in some way some sort of censorship, moral or direct censorship because of the themes you treat?
Okay, you mean do I have my work censored, or
do you find in your professional career some censorship from some people? I don't
okay.
know.
Do you want to repeat
there
the question?
There may be people who might be offended by some things you paint.
Yeah, many
Sí.
people.
Pregunto un poco, como habéis visto además los chistes de cancelación también han estado un poco presentes, pero sí se ha sentido a lo largo de su carrera que su trabajo ha...
Enfrentarse a algún tipo de censura,
ha
o
ofendido
moral,
o ha habido algún tipo de censura en lo que ha hecho, digamos, dados los tiempos. Bueno, lo hemos sobrepasado en la conversación.
Not really. I think the people that I work with, like Blab and Atta and the galleries, they understand and respect my work enough that they don't ask me to tone it down or maybe edit things or try to sort of have me play it safe. I think if anything, they want me to go further. They want me to take it even further, keep pushing it, because I think that's going to create the most interesting content, the sort of the best art, and they really respect my process and my voice, and I haven't really run across that. I also don't deal with a lot of mainstream publishing, or even sort of like blue chip, galleries that are at a very high level. So there hasn't been that problem so far.
We know about the States, but how's this in Canada?
You mean the censorship or
censorship
this?
and the political correctness?
Yeah, well, it's definitely there. It's like everywhere else, I think. It's sort of, there's a lot of that in the media. I think many people that I talk to, friends and people that I meet that I think are sort of kindred spirits in the world, not just in North America, but when I travel. I mean, so many people are sort of a bit tired of the sort of the large swings from this to that, to the sort of, the sort of where we were to this ultra watered down, refined, sort of political correctness that allows for this much, so I can't remember what where are we going with this, but no, in Canada, in Canada, yeah, of course it exists. And Canada, I mean, to begin with, was a very conservative country, very safe, very polite. We say sorry a lot, even if we haven't done anything wrong. We apologize in advance for things, and I think now with this sort of big rise of political correctness, it's all over the place. So.
Do you think that this is I don't know, is it it's because we are reading the images very literal, and I don't know, is that is the way of read images in our present. I don't know if maybe we are waiting for a new punk or.
A new underground. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of underground out there, but it is maybe less and less than it was. It seems like things are getting so, well, it feels like things are getting very sort of broad and very like sort of political correctness for everybody, but then at the same time there's these sort of worlds, digital worlds where people are like, there's a website for someone who likes Harry Potter riding dinosaurs, sword fighting with Darth Vader or something, and that's like, it's its own little sort of group of people. Hey, I like that too, So I think there's hope for the sort of the underground to keep going through. Just it'll be different, but I think there is that sort of digital underground. People continue to paint and make comics and publish, but it does feel like punk is being outpriced by real estate, and you can't to get a venue, to open a gallery, for individuals to keep these sort of underground movements going on a brick and mortar level. I think
and the difficulty of make new images in this person that we have all this access to images, and also the great theme of our time, the artificial intelligence. That's the question of today. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think my worry is not so much that artificial intelligence will take away our jobs, but I feel like it might devalue imagery because of the amount of imagery that's already out there, but will continue to be pushed out there. And at first glance, a lot of it looks amazing, and it's slick, and it's, you know, weirdly lit, and it's very interesting and attractive in many ways. But when you start to see your 100th AI image, it starts to look quite similar, unless the person training it knows what they're doing. And I think in that case, there's a lot of amazing AI artists that are already producing some incredible work because they're training it. They're not just saying, you know, I want a picture of a person in a futuristic ski suit riding the back of a duck or something, you know, and then it spits it out. It's like, oh, look what I did, you know. It's like you didn't do anything. You just typed in some words or said some words. But I feel that as an artist, I look at all these images, and some of them are really compelling, and I feel like, kind of like how can I possibly keep up with this sort of level of imagery, because people will treat all imagery the same, whether it's AI that took a second to produce or a painting that took a year to produce. I think for people it might kind of have the same value, and to me as an artist, of course, it doesn't. So yeah, I don't know, hopefully that answers.
No, no.
Yes.
Ricardo quiere preguntar.
Hi.
Hello.
Hola.
Two questions, please. The first one is related with a topic you talked before. Are you thinking in creating a longer comic book? Because we would like to see, I think, a longer story. And the second one, you have talked about your favorite artists, but I think you always talk about, you know, vintage artists. So I would like to know which comic book artist, let's say contemporary, do you like?
Okay.
Yeah, so
From any era or more current?
if you can say more current.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, so yeah, the first one was, will I do a longer comic book? The second one was favorite comic artists. Okay, so for the first question, can you help me make a longer comic book? Because I need. He said, no, he'll do it. Yeah, I would like to. I mean, I have ideas for another Mean Girls Club graphic novel. I have some ideas for that. Again, it's the time. And the time versus the payment is such a hard balance. So yes, I would like to, but not at the moment. Maybe eventually compiling the short comics into a trade paperback with maybe some new material is probably the most likely outcome. Secondly, yeah, current artists. I mean, I am not very up on my current comic artists, contemporary comic artists. I really love Charles Burns. I think he's probably my favorite contemporary comic artist. Trying to think of who else. There was a period, and this is the 90s, so it's not very current, but it seems like, for me, it feels like yesterday, unfortunately. But, you know, I was reading a lot of the drawn and quarterly comic art, like Seth and Chester Brown and Adrian Tomine, and then the Fantagraphics with Dan Close. Really love the work of Dan Close. Some of the artists from Blab I got turned on to. I enjoyed the anthologies a lot rather than sort of the individual artists, because I think the anthologies, it's like a beautiful sort of buffet, you know, where you can kind of pick and choose your favorites and try new things too. So, but those are sort of the ones that stand out to me. I know there's more that I am not thinking of at the moment, but I think I'm so rooted in the past that it's hard for me to sort of get past this sort of the usual, you know, artists that I love from the past eras.
Sorry, what about Robert Crumb?
Robert Crumb, yeah, I like his work. You know, I know that he is a god amongst in the comic world. For me, I'm not trying to say that his work isn't good, but it doesn't speak to me the way I think it speaks to a lot of people. I enjoy a lot of it, I mean, he's an incredible draftsman. But it never, to be honest, it just never spoke to me. Same with Charles Schultz. I think he's, you know, he's such a, he's so revered, and so many people look up to him. And I'm not trying to, you know, devalue the work at all. But it never, it's like, I don't get it. It's like, how many times can he kick the football and fall, or get his kite caught in the tree? And it's like, you know, it just, it wasn't my voice. So, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Si no hay ninguna pregunta más, pues nos cerra ya la conversación y que firme lo que hayáis traído. So.
Thank you. Oh, well, thank you so much.